We're okay? All right. It is 5:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present. We will now go into oral communications. This is the opportunity to address the city council on any matter scheduled for closed session. Unless additional time is authorized by the council, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone for oral communications for this portion of the meeting? No? Do we have anyone on virtually?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. We'll now go into the city council closed session items.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have 6 items before the council in closed session this evening. The first, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, Council Real Property Negotiators Property APN 252-193-008, Agency Negotiator John Lawless and Jason Ridenour, Negotiating Party City of Porterville and California Medical Imaging under negotiation terms and price. Item 2, Government Code Section 54956.95, Liability Claim, claimants Bertha Ruiz, Charlie David Montoya, Karen Marlene Montoya, and Jonathan Salvador Montoya. Agency claimed against City of Porterville. Item 3, Government Code Section 54956.95, Liability Claim, claimant Donald Sweeney, agency claimed against City of Porterville. Item 4, Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 3, Council Legal Counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, 3 cases in which facts are not yet known to potential plaintiff. Item 5, Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 4, Council Legal Counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation, 1 case. And item number 6, Government Code Section 54957, threat to public services or facilities, consultation with Jay Costello, Porterville EOC Incident Commander. Staff's report.
Thank you. It is 5:32. We will now go into closed session.
Yeah, it's kind of nice that,
go ahead and
he
go.
gave us that tip that it's a county thing, right?
It is 6:41. We will reconvene open session and report on reportable action taken in closed session.
Thank you, Mayor. There's 2 items to report tonight. On item A2, claim by Bertha Ruiz et al. On a motion by Mayor Flores and seconded by Councilmember Meister, and a 5-0 vote, that claim was rejected. And with regard to number A3, the claim of Donald Sweeney, on a motion by Vice Mayor Carrillo and seconded by Councilmember Beltran, and a 5-0 vote, that claim was rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have 2 items that we'll need to add. Is that,
Yes, Mayor, that is correct. We have 2 urgency items that the staff actually already had posted to the website and sent out via our information channels ahead of time. They are urgency matters. They came to the attention of the staff and the city after the 72-hour posting deadline, but there is a need to take action on these prior to the next meeting. And they are for the authorization to purchase equipment, both of them actually. One is, and both from Quinn Company, which is part of a cooperative purchasing situation. One of them is for $193,644.74. The other one is for, let's see here, make sure I say it right. $295,396.86 and a $57,406.25. So they're basically excavation type equipment that I'm sure the Public Works Director can elaborate on. But at this point, we would just need a motion to add those items to the agenda for discussion at a later time tonight.
with that information, I'd like to make the motion that we add both emergency items number 1 and number 2 after item number 17 of scheduled matters.
I'll second that.
And we have a second. No further discussion. Call for the vote, please. It passes unanimous 5-0. We will have 2 additional scheduled matters, which are the emergency items 1 and 2. Thank you very much. We will now, I'm going to ask that you please join us and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Vice Mayor Carrillo. And I invite you to please remain standing for an invocation or a moment of silence. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to do an invocation? Please do so.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for delivering all this great rain and helping us to get through the drought. Lord, we are so grateful that we got so much rain that we were praying we wouldn't get any more last week, and you delivered us from that flood stage. Lord, we are so grateful for the blessings of this rain and all the things that it brought with us, but Lord, we know that all the things it brought too are things that we need to clean up, things that we need to repair. There are people in need, there are people that are hurt. Help us to be there for them and serve them. Help this body to continue to make good decisions, to continue to do well in our city. With the things that we're doing now, we really feel strongly that we're moving in the right direction this year. Help us, guide us, and be with us throughout. And all these things I pray in Jesus' name, amen.
You may be seated. We will now move into the presentation.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, it is a pleasure tonight for the City of Porterville to announce the Press Shop as a Legacy Business Honoree, recognizing the business for 41 years of service to the Porterville community following its closure early this year. The Press Shop provided valuable dry cleaning services to the community From the iconic downtown Porterville location, every year, more than 4,000 customers enjoyed a variety of services, including pressings, steaming, laundry, alterations, and care for draperies and leathers. On average, the press shop team was comprised of over 6 individuals who processed more than 80,000 items and completed 19,000 pounds of laundry each year. And a lot of that laundry was mine. You know, in 1982, Karen Jordan, she began working part-time at the press shop. And she didn't know that shortly after, Charles Spencer, who was the current owner, was preparing to sell his business. After only 2 months of working with Charles, he asked Karen if she wanted to buy the business. Without thinking twice, Karen and her husband, Leroy, purchased the press shop. The press shop quickly became a family business as Karen's daughters and grandchildren worked there throughout the years. Hiring local team members was a high priority for Karen, and employees gained excellent customer service skills, which they later applied in other organizations in the community. The press shop store manager has provided 20 years of service, as well as a presser, over 15 years of service. Karen says that she's been through a lot of ages in this town, and she recalls thinking of Porterville was just a small, nice community in the 1970s. And after only a few years in Porterville, she began to know the people and continued to fall in love with the close-knit community that Porterville is known for. The sense of community motivated Karen to get involved in helping others. For 30 years, Karen was a member of the 20 Ants Club, where she helped fundraise for scholarship benefiting students who chose to attend Porterville College after high school. Even though Porterville has grown in size from a population of a little under 20,000 when Karen arrived to more than 62,000 today, she says it still retains its charm, and you can't get that everywhere, she added. In earlier 2023, Karen made the decision to close the doors of the press shop. From the very beginning, she had worked closely with her husband to ensure the establishment was well maintained. Sadly, when Leroy passed away 4 years ago, she continued running the shop with the help of her loyal employees. With the press shop's closure, Karen feels grateful to the community that welcomed her so many years ago. And after decades of focusing on the press shop full-time, she now plans to enjoy herself and take some time to travel. Please join me in thanking the press shop for their dedication to our Porterville community for over 41 years. Thank you, Karen. We wish you a joyful retirement and many adventures in your upcoming travels. Thank you so much.
Karen. Karen, would you please come forward, Karen? This is truly an honor for me. As of 30 of those 41 years, I've known no other person. When I see Tasha, Kim, and Karen, and everyone in the house, it's a family unit. Karen, in gratitude to business owners, Karen and Leroy Jordan, for their contributions to the economic vitality of the Porterville community, as the business closes its doors in 2023, following 41 years of business operations in Porterville, I am honored to thank you, and on behalf of the council.
Oh, sorry. Oh, boy. Well, he pretty much said everything that I said. And after that, you don't think you're going to tear up, but you do. I just want to thank all of my customers that I've had through all the years. Oh, my gosh. Martha's been a big customer all those years.
Through thick and thin, and that's weight.
That's right. Much thinner now than I used to be. Yes, I did work it off. But anyway, practically everybody who worked at the press shop, will you stand up? This is Tasha, my 21-year-old person who have been with me for 21 years as my manager. She knows everybody here.
Yeah.
This is Sandra, my presser, 15 years, don't cry. And they're both now working at the cleaners in Tulare, but if somebody buys this place, they're back. Right, yeah. And this is my daughter Stephanie, she was in the early times, when I first started out, and she now works for Planet Fitness, as an assistant manager there. This is my daughter Kim, back there, who worked 10 years later than Stephanie, because they're 10 years apart. And she works at OsteoStrong, and is the manager there. And this is her son, my grandson, Tristan, and he works summers and helped me make hangers and all the stuff that we do. And he waited on customers and figured out some of our computer stuff. So I just want to thank all of them. They were the backbone. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go into oral communications, I'd like to say thank you to Assemblyman Mathis for attending this evening, and to Rogelio Caudillo for taking time out of his busy schedule to also attend and be here with us from the Eastern Tule Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Thank you. We will now go into oral communications. This is the opportunity to address the council on any matter of interest, whether on the agenda or not. Please address all items not scheduled for public hearing at this time. Unless additional time is authorized by the council, all commentary shall be limited to 3 minutes. If you are here for the public hearing, item number 15, please hold your comment when that item comes up on the agenda, and you will be given the opportunity to speak. You will be asked to please state your name and address for the record, and I will also emphasize that the 3-minute per speaker time period will be adhered to so that the council can, in an orderly fashion, proceed with its decision-making responsibilities this evening. Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to come forth for oral communications? Please do so.
Brock Neely, address on record. I'd respectfully request that you pull item 13 from the consent calendar for discussion. This item goes against all that you do up there at the dais in setting policy and rules. If somebody can't follow the policies and rules, they can't go and cry to mommy and have mommy fix it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forth?
Hello, I'm Kathy Capone. First, I want to thank you, council members, for your time serving on council. I have somewhat of an idea about the number of hours you spend doing this and studying and preparing, and thank you very much. Second, the Tule River Gardens are well above the flood levels of the rivers, and they are doing just fine. There are many flowering plants out there. Please come out and enjoy it. We just installed 17 signs in the gardens area and are going to be continuing installing some signs. Third, and most important, I wanted to encourage you to, with all deliberate speed, help us support and take care of the less fortunate among us as a community. Our homeless population, it's, in my mind, a disgrace how we are treating those human beings who do not have a roof over their heads right now. These people need toilets and showers, laundry facilities, and trash collection. Toilets, showers, laundry facilities, and trash collection. None of us would want to live without these basic essentials. I feel very fortunate that I have a good roof over my heads. Please consider those less fortunate than us when you're thinking about how we are dealing with them in the river cleanup issues and in just general support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ed McCurvey, District 4. I want to start out with a rhetorical question. Item number 14 on the consent calendar says vote for drought emergency continuation. You guys are under an emergency for flood right now. That seems like a contradiction. I'm going to start below the line. I've got a lot of data that I've looked at what happened last week, and we had a near miss on really flooding the city out. And I think there needs to be an investigation into the water master and the amount of water is being let out of this dam for the month leading up to March with all the snowpack and all the warnings about the fire risk for flooding. There needs to be an investigation. That's a root cause. Once they got behind the power curve, we had to get into reaction mode, and I want to go above the line. Above the line is this. This city was a little late in reacting, but this city has done an excellent job of reacting to the crisis that we're facing. And there's a couple men I want to mention. One is Mitch Brown. The other is Michael Knight. The other is the fire chief and the assistant Shannon Skiles. Those four men stood up against powers that told them not to do what they were doing at times. They were leaders. They stood against and they interposed on behalf of the public. They stood against the status quo and the way they were managing the dam that comes down in the middle of this city. And they went against popular opinion, and they went against the people that were telling them not to dam that up, and they saved the city from getting flooded because they can't control that. Mitch Brown, sorry about that. I don't want to mention his name. Mitch Brown saved the city. And these men stood up and stood together and did the right thing, and they really, I'd say above all the others, there are many we could mention, did a great service for the city. And I think Courage Under Fire would be a great award to give them because they stood, and they stood where other men wouldn't, and they stood and they did the right thing, and they really saved a lot of trauma and drama in this city by keeping that water in the river. Fixing the spillway, damming up the water that comes into this city, essential to preventing the city from flooding. And then the things that we did to save River Springs, where those houses are built a little bit below the floodplain, excellent. Excellent work. I know we really challenged a lot of assumptions and probably broke some myths, but we are not in a drought. Get us off this emergency drought process, and whoever the water master is, it was still managing to a drought with 210% snowpack and probably one of the best snow seasons we ever had. We're filling Tule Lake right now. Hasn't been filled up since 1983 when I was a kid, and I watched that. We are not in a drought. We've got the best storage that we've ever had, and we're still going to fill Tule Lake. This is going to be on record as one of the wettest years we've ever endured, and we're not out of the woods yet. So continue to fight for the people. Continue to do what you're doing. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Mr. McCurvey. Is there someone else that would like to? Hi, Christy.
Good evening, City Council members. I'm Christy Martin. I'm here on behalf of the Porterville Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to try to speak quickly because I have a lot to share with you guys, which is great news. So some of the things that are going on over at the Chamber, we've welcomed a lot of new ambassadors in the last probably 6 weeks, which is really exciting. So our newest ambassador that has joined our committee is Elise McKenna. She's a local dance teacher here in the town who partners with a lot of our businesses to give classes and bring some business into our shops and things like that. So we're really excited to have her on board. We've also welcomed 3 new members since we last saw you a few weeks ago. So She Mogul Media, who I got to sit down and meet with today. And I was very impressed by the young lady that is their operations director there. So I'm excited that we have them on board with us. Air Medcare Network / Reach Air Medical Services, and then Alpha Charlie Exterminators. We also have a couple of events coming up in the month of April. So we had 2 ribbon cuttings that we had to reschedule this last month because of all the storms and the rain. some issues that they were having with their buildings. So those ones that were rescheduled, one is the ribbon cutting for Kristen's Tonsorial Parlor. So we have moved that to April 1st now at 11 a.m. And that's at 288 North D Street. And she's also going to be combining that as an event with the museum with pop-up vendors. So if you have nothing to do that Saturday, it's a great chance to come out, go through the museum, come for the ribbon cutting, and then enjoy some food and some craft vendors. Then we'll have our normal First Friday coffee on April 7th at 7 a.m. at Galaxy Theaters. And this month, we're going to be sponsored by Tulare County Federal Credit Union, but their student branch that's inside Porterville High School. So I think that'll be a really great opportunity for us to see what the students are doing there at the high school. We will have our Spring Festival mixer the Thursday before the Spring Festival. So that'll be April 13th, 5:30 p.m. at the Palace Kitchen and Craft Bar. And that's going to be sponsored by David Horowitz Jewelry. And my tagline for that is food and diamonds. So they're going to be doing a giveaway. We're going to have food there. So who wouldn't want to come out to food and diamonds? And then our Spring Festival, we are well underway for planning on that. That's going to be Saturday, April 15th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. here on Main Street. We're going to have the chili cook-off coming back, car show, live entertainment, pistachio tasting, kids zone, craft and food vendors, and we still have room for vendors, any chili cook-off participants, and volunteers. We also need volunteers for that day. And then our other ribbon cutting that was rescheduled is going to be combined with the business after hours on April 20th at Imagine Arts Center at 63 South Main Street at 5:30 p.m. And one last thing, if that's okay.
Please, go ahead, finish.
One last thing, we have partnered with Hanson Travel to kind of see about bringing back that Travel with the Chamber program that used to be in effect years ago. So we'll be having a travel presentation on April 27th at 5:30 p.m. at the Chamber Conference Room. And the two trips that they are looking at planning are to Tuscany and then the Montreal and Quebec Christmas markets. So if you are interested in that, please come and join us that evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Devin Mathis, address on the west side for the record, hometown. Anyway, Madam Mayor, council, city staff, I want to thank you all for the tremendous job that you're doing. I've spent the last 48 hours boots on ground with a lot of your staff. Frankly, staff that people are usually disingenuous to and forget that, you know, just because they've got a yellow vest on, they're not just there staring at potholes and standing around with shovels. These are the men and women out there protecting the banks of the river that flows through our great city. I know they have some equipment items asking for some more equipment. I would be more than happy to help with some letters of support on getting extra state and federal funding for those things as the process goes. But I think it's worthwhile to address the fact that these people are on the ground, they are working beyond overtime, and they're protecting everybody's livelihoods. And I think it's worth recognizing them. As mentioned earlier, we also have some friends to the city that have gone out of their way and done tremendous work. So as those times come forward, I look forward to being able to recognize those people with the honor that they deserve. And I just encourage the city, we are not out of the woods yet. All this lovely rain that's not directly falling on us is falling on the mountains, and it is going to come this way, and we're going to have a very long, wet flood season. Sadly, we are not out of drought yet because we have to get that water down into our aquifers, and there's work that needs to be done on that as well. So I look forward to that. I look forward to working with all of you as we have partnered for the last, what are we on, 9, 10 years now. So let's get it done. Let's keep taking care of the people here. And let's also be cognizant and thankful of our friends and neighbors and make sure everybody's still pulling together as a community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that would like to come forward? Do we have anyone on virtually?
Yes, we do, Your Honor. I have
Please.
a Josh Flowers. I'll go ahead and bring them in.
Hello there. Coming to you, Sacramento. All right, everybody. Well, over the past few times I've been able to talk to you, I've talked about interposition, and we got to see some good examples of that today or this last few days with everybody. It didn't matter who it was, if they were coming together for food or water drives or just aiding the community of Springville, from private citizens building up dams and spillways to city management and private citizens coming together to block the Porter Slough in order to save the city from flooding. This was big. And they did it not out of self-interest, but they did it because it was the right thing to do, and it was to help everybody. So like many of you, I pray for those who have been displaced, but I know as a community we'll come together and help those that are in need. With that said, I believe we need to learn from this crisis. One area I think the city can really improve on is the communication and concerns, because the community had concerns. And if you could just speak directly to them and tell them all the efforts that the city management and city staff were doing, it would have eased tensions and people would feel even more safe. But the work that city staff has done was outstanding, and all of you guys should be applauded for that. Now, with that said, I believe this crisis does show us the way forward. And in listening to everybody's comments, I believe that the council can take a position and do these three things in order to strengthen our community. Number one, I do believe that we need to stop the drought resolution because this crisis has showed us the root problem, and that is we have improper dam control and we don't have enough water storage. Our lake success is the smallest amongst the 4 lakes that are closest to us. I would also want to encourage you guys to stop the rollout of the smart city metering systems for water. You know, that is planned to give us below third world consumption levels over time. So what we got to do is not worry about making people have less. We need to go focus on storage and better flood control. That's how we fix this problem. Secondly, I think we need to help those homeless that have been displaced and keep them in an area that they can feel they're safe and help find them the tools they need in order to get housed. But in the meantime, we got to go back to enforcing our no camping ordinances and keep our water levels safe, our wetlands safe, and our streets safe. Then lastly, we could do is we need to find ways to promote small businesses within the city of Porterville. Show investors this is the place that they want to bring their money into our community. Give every chance to become part of the bid process. Encourage small businesses to open up here and spend locally. That's what small businesses do. You know, that's how we build back Porterville's economy stronger through this crisis. The days, the big box stores, they're starting to go automated.
Mr. Flowers, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to summarize.
Thank you. So the big box stores, they're just automating everything. It's small business that's going to bring jobs back to Porterville. Now, I realize it's tough, but as leaders of this community like you are, you can chart us on a new path by solving the root problems. And again, we can give us more water, safer streets, and more jobs locally. Thank you all for what you're doing, and good luck tonight.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to come on virtually?
No, Your Honor.
No? Okay, thank you. We will now go into the reports. This is the time for all committee, commission, board reports, and subcommittee reports. I will begin with Parks and Leisure Services Commission. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I am Parks and Leisure Services Commissioner Arlene Pena with our commission report. Fitness stations were installed by the city staff along path of Zalad Park. This fitness equipment was purchased through the Community Development Block Grant Park Improvement Funds. ADA compliant engineered wood fiber, wood chips were dispersed throughout playgrounds in the city. A significant cleanup took place at Hayes Field Tree work and a lot of trash and debris were removed in preparations for the upcoming girls softball season. March 1st marked the first day of the summer pool rentals. Every time slot for the entire summer was reserved within 2 hours. Lifeguard hiring season is upon us in preparation for the opening of the pool in May. Red Cross lifeguard training courses will be offered in April. The Youth Fishing Derby took place last Saturday. The event was a sellout. All of the boy and girls ages 2 to 15 had a great time. Raffle prizes were handed out and trophies were awarded to the top 3 in each age division. Lettering defining the Fallen Heroes Memorial Wall was added a few weeks ago at Fallen Heroes Park. Lastly, park staff has been filling sandbags and helping in other areas as needed during this storm event. Thank you. This concludes the report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And it's good to have you in person. It's been a while. Thank you so much. It is appreciated. Okay. Library and Literacy Commission, Edith.
It's fun not being first. We should have more things to report. Before I start into the statistical part of it, there is a conference coming up that's called Serving with a Purpose, and several of our staff and commissioners are going to be going to this. And once they have gone and given a report to the commission, I will report on it for you. As the virtual story times, the one every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock and 11, had 919 English story time people, 804 Spanish, for a total of 1,614. The adult book club, now before I get any further on the adult book club, you know who was taking pictures over here when the Arnolds were being honored? She's a member of it. I learned that as I came in here. So, and the club is growing. We had 15 there last time. So it's growing. And they read a book called The Woods by Harlan Coben. And I'm encouraging people to do this because they're picking some pretty good books. And when you belong to a virtual club like that, you don't just read the book, you discuss it. And that way people get more out of it. The bilingual story time every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. is for toddlers, preschool, and aged kids. And it's in both English and Spanish. Books are read, kids are toddlers, they're games, things, educational games that teach them. The younger kids will learn mobility with the hands and, coordination and other things. And there were 131 participants. Family Literacy Services, which is every third Thursday of every month, had 21 participants in February. The Bring Your Own Game Day had 34 participants this last month. And our library staff was invited to play book bingo with the kids who are enrolled in the Parks and Leisure. See, coordination. That was held at the Summit Charter Lombardi School, and they had 55 participants. And February the 3rd, kindergarten registration at Burton's District Berkey Center. I remember John Berkey. I loved him. He was a great man. There were 204 participants, and the staff had the information booth to promote library services, and they processed 20 new library cards. So we're growing, even though we're little right now. Now, a couple years, we're going to say a different story. February the 9th, the elementary school, kindergarten, and TK students had a bilingual story time, and there were 7 participants with 15 kindergarten students and 15, what do you call that, TK students? Is that the pre-kindergarten? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't have that when I went to school.
No.
Of course, when I went to school, we were still carrying the big old things. And the library held something this last month that I thought was really interesting, and I think it's something we should do more of and promote more of. They held a How Much Can You Say Savings competition, where patrons had the opportunity by saving their checkout library receipts to show how much they saved. And there were 3 winners. There were 30 participants in this program. 3 winners. First place went to Sadie Maynor, who saved $427. Second place went to Joseph Navarro, saved $388. And Allie Plysted, who saved and I know her, $336. When you borrow resources from the library, you don't have to go out and buy it. And you can take it home and use it. You take it back, and you can check it out again if you need it. So, you know, this is something that we need to do. I don't know about you, but I'm extremely frugal. I didn't say cheap. I said frugal. And that really worked. Staff launched the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten Challenge, in which parents of kids are challenged to read to their children 1,000 books before they enter kindergarten. And this is, of course, to help with literacy, one of the most important things we have. And out of our literacy program, which is one of the most important things, because if you can't read, a library doesn't do you much good. So we have a lot of people that attend this program. And Rita has successfully learned how to work through Zoom. And she's created a Zoom account. And as you know, these last 3 years, how important Zoom has become and what a blessing it is. And that's basically our report. But I do want to say something. This city is blessed in so many ways. We have a good library system. We have good services that are provided, things we don't think about that involve infrastructure. But this city, in emergencies in the past where I have been involved, and today, have shown how they come together and take care of each other. And Porterville is to be commended for the quality of people it has, and its staff especially. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report. It is appreciated. No Arts Commission, no Animal Control Commission, no Youth Commission, and no Two Talks. So that moves us on to the consent calendar. All consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these matters unless a request is made, in which event the item will be removed from the consent calendar. All items removed from the consent calendar for further discussion will be heard at the end of scheduled matters. How does council wish to proceed? We have items 1 through 14.
Madam Mayor, if I could, just 2 comments. On number 7, given the rain event and potential impact on Zalad Park, it was requested to change the location to Veterans Park. It doesn't present any conflicts, but it's a midweek reservation and can be accommodated at Veterans Park.
Okay,
just,
so instead of Zalad,
same
it'd
day,
be
just
Veteran.
different location.
Okay, Veterans Park. Okay, thank you.
And then also wanted to declare, I guess, a conflict of interest on, let's put it this way,
Okay. City manager.
what's the
notes-
word I wanted? AB 1, 2, 3, 4, perceived conflict of interest, not a real
Okay.
conflict of interest on number 9.
Okay. Thank you. So number 7, that's only changed from Zalad Park to Veterans Park, no significant change. City manager has noted a potential perceived conflict of interest on number 9. How does council wish to proceed?
I'll make a motion to go forward.
With items
Yeah,
1 through,
1 through 14.
We have-
Are we can't
well,
add?
someone has to second for discussion. Someone has to second for discussion.
Okay, I'll second.
We have a second. Now discussion. Now you can ask your question.
Well, I was going to ask if we could add those other two, just to get it all done.
We've already done the process according to transparency and according to legal counsel for scheduled matters at the very end.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
So we have a first and a second.
Okay, no further discussion. We have a motion made by Councilmember Meister, a second by Councilmember Beltran, and no further discussion. Let's call for the vote of the consent calendar. It passes 4-1. We have 4 yes and 1 no. Okay. I just have a, well, it's already been taken. No, never mind. Now we will move on into the public hearing, item number 15.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's been one public hearing scheduled for this evening, which is considered the modification to conditional use permit 10-88 and classification of nonconforming use for Crayola Corner. And with that, Mr. Ridenour will provide the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless. Honorable Mayor and City Council, I've asked Mr. Zepeda to provide his staff report.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor, council members, City Manager's Office, and staff. So today we have a modification to conditional use permit 1088 and classification of a nonconforming use for Crayola Corner. The Crayola Corner Daycare currently operates at 420 Northeast Street. The use was originally authorized by conditional use permit 10-88, which was approved in 1989 by adoption of Resolution 1189, an authorized operation of a child care facility within the existing single-family residential structure on the site. Per conditions of the fire marshal, activities were limited to the first floor of the structure. The 545 square foot accessory structure at the rear of the property was modified later in 1989 for use as a classroom. While the expansion should have required a modification of the conditional use permit, it was approved via a building permit. The applicant proposes to expand the accessory structure by 925 square feet to include additional classroom space, a break room, and restroom, bringing the total area of that structure to 1,470 square feet. The Project Review Committee reviewed the proposed expansion on July 20, 2022, and determined that the expansion is subject to a modification of conditional use permit 1088. Under current provisions, the use falls within the definition of daycare center, establishment providing non-medical care for persons on a less than 24-hour basis other than family daycare home. This classification includes nursery schools, preschools, and daycare facilities for children or adults, and any other daycare facility licensed by the state of California. Daycare centers are no longer identified as a permitted use in the RM3 high-density residential zone district, which makes this use considered non-conforming, and the expansion of the use requires the City Council to classify the non-conforming use for the purpose of determining whether to permit the substitution or expansion. As outlined in the Porterville Development Ordinance, Section 307.06, classification of non-conforming uses, the classification may be either a Class 1 or Class 2. Class 1 non-conforming uses are designated by the Council following a public hearing and based on certain findings. Number 1, the existing non-conforming use was legally established. The use was lawfully established by action of the City Council at its meeting on January 3rd, 1989 by adoption of Resolution Number 1189, which approved conditional use permit 10-88 for a child care facility within an existing residential structure at 420 Northeast Street. Number 2, the proposed expansion or substitution of the non-conforming use would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. The proposal consists of minor expansions to an existing daycare facility. The project is required to comply with city requirements related to zoning, public facility services and utilities, and improvement standards. These mechanisms are intended to minimize the effects of development on nearby properties and uses. Number 3, that the proposed expansion or substitution would not be inconsistent with the general plan and would not preclude or interfere with implementation of any applicable adopted city plans. The RM3 zone is the implementing zone for the high-density residential land use designation. Via the procedure established in the Development Ordinance, Section 307.06, the Council may classify a use as non-conforming and thereby allow for its expansion. The proposed expansion therefore consistent with the general plan. There is no other applicable plan. Number 4, the proposed use will not depress the value of nearby properties. The proposed use consists of a minor expansion of an existing use. The childcare facilities, such as the existing proposed facilities, are generally compatible with residential uses. This use would be required to comply with all applicable city requirements and would not negatively affect property values. Number 5, no useful purpose would be served by strict application of the provisions of or requirements of this ordinance with which the use or structure does not conform. Strict application of the development ordinance would result in the existing facility without expansion simply continuing to operate as an unclassified non-conforming use. Class 2 non-conforming uses include any legally established non-residential use that involves the following. In this case, the findings for Class 2 non-conforming use does not apply. Further, the requested building size of 1,470 square feet is 270 square feet above the maximum allowed size for accessory structures within residential districts. The zoning administrator has the authority to consider allowances to this limitation. The nonconforming use daycare use falls within the criteria of the Class 1 nonconforming classification, so the City Council may take action accordingly. The expansion of the accessory structure beyond 1,200 square feet may be permitted pursuant to council discretion. Previous accessory structure zoning administrator approvals have been allowed up to 1,800 square feet in residential districts. The Porterville Development Ordinance Section 604.04 requires that the council make the following findings prior to approving a conditional use permit. A, approval of the proposed project would advance the goals, objectives of and is consistent with the policies of the general plan and any other applicable plan that the city has adopted. And B, that the location, site, design, and operation characteristics of the proposed project are consistent with the purposes of the district where it is located and conforms in all significant respects with the general plan, this development ordinance, and with any other applicable plan adopted by the City Council. As far as the environmental review, the proposed project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, section 15301, existing facilities, as it involves the expansion of the existing use by not more than 10,000 square feet in area, where all public services and facilities are available to allow for the maximum development permissible in the general plan and is not in environmental sensitive area. A notice of exemption will be filed. To the Tulare County Clerk and State Clearinghouse, should council approve the project. So with that, we recommend that the City Council finds the proposed project exempt from CEQA under CEQA guidelines 15301. Number 1. Number 2, classify the existing daycare as a Class 1 non-conforming use. And number 3, adopt a draft resolution approving the modification to the conditional use permit 1088 for Crayola Corner, subject to conditions of approval. And staff and the applicant is available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, council, I'm going to get ready to open up the public hearing, and then we can ask questions if we have them afterwards. It is 7:29. I will open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and speak on this item? Do we have anyone on virtually? Note that there are no public comments in council chambers and none virtually. It is 7:30. I will close the public hearing. Council, how do you wish to proceed? Do you have any questions of staff? And please, no questions?
No questions from me.
I have a question.
Please. Councilmember Wyrock had a question.
Let me try to push this button
There you
properly.
go.
Thank you. Great report out, great information, appreciate it. I just have a question, Mayor, if I may, on this Class 2 nonconforming use. I'll just read it as written. Include any legally established non-residential use that involves the following. So this parcel then would be allowed to store, use, or generate hazardous materials, processes, products, or waste. And I know they're not doing that now, it's just a daycare. The activity in item 2, 3, and 4, all kind of the same thing, right? It kind of broadens the neighborhood exposure with this change. Is there a way that we can restrict the reclassification to strike these items, to prohibit these items, or if we go to non-conforming, in your opinion, does it have to be there?
We have two options. The one we have, well, council has two options. It has a Class 1 non-conforming use and a Class 2. In this case, this use that's being proposed would fall under a Class 1 non-conforming use, in our opinion, based off the development ordinance findings.
That was my only clarification. I see that in the recommendations being a Class 1 non-conforming, provides security for the neighborhood, and that was my only comment. I wanted to make sure that wasn't going to find its way in there. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for asking that question. Appreciate it. Any? Councilmember Beltran, did you have any question? Vice Mayor? Okay, it's a very good report, and now I'm just going to ask, how does council wish to proceed?
I'll make a motion that we follow the recommendations from staff on items 1 through 3, and the recommendation that the project is exempt from CEQA, under CEQA guidelines, classify the existing daycare as a Class 1 non-conforming use, and adopt the draft resolution approving the modification to the use permit 1088 for Crayola Corner.
Thank you, Councilmember Wyrock. I'll go ahead.
I'll
and-
second
oh,
that.
No, please, go ahead.
I'll second
Councilmember
that
Meister,
motion.
second. No further discussion. Let's call for the vote. Passes unanimous, 5-0. Thank you very much. All right. We will now move on into the scheduled matters.
Thank you, Your
Number
Honor. There are 4 scheduled matters this evening with the council's ratification of the emergency items. First being item number 16, which is the 2022 Housing Element Annual Performance Report. And again, Mr. Ridenhour provides staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I feel a little deja vu. So, in the state of California, governing bodies are required to prepare an annual report on the status and progress of implementing the jurisdiction's housing element of the general plan. Housing element annual progress reports, also known as APRs, use forms and definitions adopted by HCD, are due annually by April 1st, covering the preceding calendar year. This report evaluates the progress made towards implementation of the 2015 through 2023 housing element programs and housing production during the time period between January 1st, 2022 and December 31st, 2022. In 2015, the City Council adopted the California Department of Housing and Community Development, also known as HCV, also certified the City of Porterville's 2015 through 2023 General Plan Housing Element. The housing element is one of the many chapters in the city's general plan. The housing element addresses present and future housing opportunities for Porterville residents. The housing element is the only general plan element that requires review and certification by HCD. Additionally, state law requires local jurisdictions to update the housing element every 8 years and to file an annual housing element progress report to HCD in the governor's office, also known as OPR, by April 1st of each year. At the last council meeting, you heard Mr. O'Neill. He provided us an update on the current update that we're doing to the housing element. The annual report identifies Porterville's regional housing needs assessment, also known as the RENA allocation and self-stated housing production goals, referred to as the quantified objective. The completed housing element annual progress report describes the following. One is the progress made towards meeting these goals, quantified by the total number of building permits issued for new housing units during the reporting year, and the total number of housing units entitled and completed, and the status of other items outlined in the housing elements implementation program. During the 5th RENA planning period, the city has made progress on housing element program implementation and has seen a slew of increases in housing unit approvals and production. The RENA goal for the 5-year period was 3,196 housing units, and the city was able to achieve 830 housing units. The time period of January 1st through December 31st of 2022, the city deemed complete and approved planning entitlement applications for 201 units. The following council's receipt of the housing element progress report, the report will be sent to OPR and HCD for their review and filing. Staff's recommendation is the city council review the 2022 annual housing element progress report and direct to community development Department to submit the report to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, also known as HCD, and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. Thank you, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Ridenour. Council have any questions on this report? No questions? Vice Mayor, you didn't have any questions? Okay. With that being said, I'll go ahead and make the motion that you submit the report to the Department of Housing and Community Development.
I'll second.
And we have a second. No further discussion. Let's call for the vote. Passes unanimous, 5-0. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item. It's number 17.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next scheduled matter in order is the Porterville Development Ordinance Comprehensive Update. And again, Mr. Ridenour provides staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless, Honorable Counselor. Honorable Mayor and City Council, I feel so popular tonight. At its meeting on August the 17th of 2021, the City Council approved entering into a services agreement for the Regional Early Action Planning Grant Program, also known as REAP, with TCAG, and provided direction for the REAP funds to be used for updating the Porterville Development Ordinance to reflect the recent changes in state law and to facilitate the accelerated production of housing units within the city of Porterville. At its meeting on April 5th of 2022, the council authorized staff to distribute requests for proposals, also known as an RFP, for consultant urban planning services and undertake a comprehensive update of the development ordinance. Council subsequently authorized staff to negotiate a contract with Provost and Pritchard, also known as P&P, to complete the comprehensive development ordinance update. The project includes comprehensive update to Chapter 21 of the Municipal Code with an emphasis on updates to the housing policies, standards and procedures of development ordinance. The goal of the comprehensive update is to reduce excessive regulatory standards, eliminate conflicting standards, improve documentation organization for development community, help streamline the housing entitlement and permitting process, and ensure adherence to new state laws regarding housing and planning regulations. The last comprehensive update was done in 2010. The project commenced in September of last year, and the consultant has been reviewing development ordinance and conducting a slew of meetings with stakeholders. The last couple of months, the consultant has been finalizing the draft audit report, and in the packet you received the file of the audit report. The consultant is developing a final work program in conjunction with city staff, has initiated the drafting the development ordinance code that is currently undertaking in the phase. This evening, we have Sarah from Provost and Pritchard, who is prepared to provide a presentation to the City Council of the comprehensive update and receive direction as the council sees fit. And so I'd like to welcome Sarah up to provide her presentation and thank her for all her hard work.
All right, good evening, Mayor, members of council. Is this on? Yes. I'll just get extra close. I'll just say next slide when it's ready. Good evening. I'm glad to be here. My name is Sarah Allender. I'm the project manager for the Development Code Update. And if you hit the next slide, we can review what I will be covering in the presentation. So first, I just want to do a quick project introduction. Jason has covered some of it in his staff report, but we'll touch a few points. I also want to identify some of the stakeholder input that we received to date. We'll review a summary of the audit report, which is attached to your packet. And then I also want to identify some of the next steps in the process. Next slide, please. So as Jason mentioned, this project is getting funded by the REAP program, which is the Regional Early Action Planning Funding Program through TCAG. The project itself is a comprehensive update to Chapter 21 of the Porterville Municipal Code. That includes both the zoning regulations as well as subdivision regulations. And as part of this project, we are also going to be doing a review of the zoning map itself and identifying any inconsistencies between the zone districts with your general plan land use designations. There is a requirement for those to be consistent. So part of the zoning map update will be looking at where those inconsistencies are and updating them for consistency with the general plan land use map. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons that we are updating the development code, we of course want to ensure that is reflective of general plan policies. It generally does that now, but we are going to be doing a more detailed review to ensure that all of the regulations in the development code are in alignment with your general plan. And since your last comprehensive update, there have been some new legislative requirements. So one of the main focuses of this update is, of course, making sure that your development code is consistent with all of the new state legislative requirements. The objectives of this update, of course, is to incorporate those legislative updates, but we also want to take the opportunity to ensure that the way the code is organized is user-friendly, because many people in the community, developers, staff, they're all using the code. We want to make sure that they can find the information they need to readily. We also want to take a look at how permits are being processed and see if there are any opportunities to streamline the permit procedures. I already mentioned the legislative updates, and we also lastly want to make sure that what is in the code is matching what you are currently doing as city staff members. Those can often fall out of alignment. It's not unusual, but we just want those two things to match. Next slide. So one of the first steps in this process is we did reach out to a number of stakeholders. These are folks who actually do use the code, because we wanted to get input from the users directly. And we had interviews with a number of stakeholders. Those that responded and we spoke to included land developers, consulting firms who do projects here locally, as well as some local business owners. There were a few key themes that came out of those stakeholder interviews, one of which was the Hillside Development Ordinance is fairly cumbersome to navigate, so we will be looking at opportunities to streamline and update that for more local applicability. There was also a need for affordable housing identified across both single-family and multifamily residential products. And by affordable housing, it was really housing that is affordable, not necessarily deed-restricted affordable housing. And then finally, there were quite a few comments that we heard about just opportunities to streamline the review process generally. So that will be one of the focuses of our review. Next slide. So the audit report is really the first step, first deliverable that we are presenting to the city. It really does not intend to dig into all of the details that need to be fixed in the code. We're going to be doing that as an ongoing process with your city staff. It really is an opportunity to look at the code from a few different perspectives and identify high-level observations and just make some, again, high-level recommendations for what we think we're going to focus on in the code update. And there's a few considerations that go into the information that's included in the audit report. The first are the key issues, and those primarily have come from stakeholder input, but we also had a discussion with city staff to get their perspective on what they see as a challenge with their code. So all of those key issues that we heard about in those two activities have gone into the audit report. We are also doing a review based on general plan consistency. Of course, the zoning ordinance is your primary implementing document for the general plan. We also are considering, of course, compliance with state and federal law, and we are considering best practices when it comes to code development as part of this effort. Next slide. Thank you. So the audit report is organized around a few primary topics. There's the 6 shown up on the screen. This is just how we approach codes. These are generally very good organizing principles to get us familiar with how codes are functioning currently. And so the observations and recommendations contained in the audit report are organized around these topics. And I will run through each of these and just quickly touch on some of the recommendations that have come out of the report. So if you advance to the next slide, please. We will start with code usability and accessibility. Code usability is really about how the document is put together. Can people find the information they're looking for, and can they find it relatively easily? The good news is your code is actually pretty well organized. It did go through a fairly comprehensive update not that long ago, so it really reflects a lot of the best practices that we like to see in codes already. So I don't anticipate us having to change the organization much. One of the recommendations is to confirm that organizational structure. However, we do see some redundancies in the code, and one example of this is the terms that are defined in the codes are defined and listed in multiple places. That's just an example of when we see the same information being listed multiple times in codes, we like to roll it up because it reduces the opportunity for redundancy. And then We also are going to be looking at other opportunities to consolidate, and one example there is your code currently lists out terms to be defined in one section and then uses that are defined in another section. Most people don't know the difference between a term and a use, so we're going to be rolling all of that up into one location. So those are some of the recommendations that have come out of how the code is going to be organized moving forward. Next slide, please. The next topic is permit processing and administration. This is really looking at when a project comes in over the counter, what is the process it goes through, and what do they need to go through in order to get to an approval. Some of the things that we look for in codes is it clear who the approval authority is by each individual permit type? So I think there are some opportunities, and you'll see this in the recommendations, to more clearly identify the approval authority for each individual permit type. And what that does is it just provides a level of predictability on both sides of the counter for what the process is going to be for any given project. We also look for opportunities to align the permit types against current practice. Again, this is the issue of, maybe it says it one way in the code, current city practice does not necessarily align perfectly. The outcome is for those to be consistent with each other. So we will be talking with city staff to ensure that the way they are reviewing procedures is actually reflected in the code. We are going to be also reviewing and revising the Hillside Development Ordinance. This is input that we got directly from the stakeholder input, so we will be digging into that permit procedure pretty clearly. And then we also want to look at providing areas of flexibility within your code. That's pretty important. We like predictability, but we also like things to be flexible. And there are certainly some best practices that we can look to make sure that the code has procedures in place to provide for that flexibility, and that's important for staff to be able to respond to shifts in markets and those unique situations that will always come up when you are reviewing projects on the ground. Next slide. So for zones, your zoning district is your primary implementing document for the general plan. So you want to have at least one zone district to implement each general plan land use designation. Your code generally does that. There's one exception to that, and that is resort residential land use designation does not really have a really clear zone district, so there may be an opportunity for us to create a new zone district for implementation. That's one of the items that we will talk to staff a little bit more about. We also want to make sure that the zone district has a real distinct purpose. You have 29 zone districts right now, including 3 overlays, and there's 9 districts alone in the downtown area. So we will be making sure and reviewing that those downtown districts actually have a purpose and that they're distinct from one another. If they're really not that distinct, then there may be some opportunities for consolidation, but that's one of the items that we'll be looking at and discussing further with city staff. Next slide. For general development regulations, these are development regulations that go above and beyond sort of site-specific regulations like setbacks, heights, lot sizes. Those are all very specific to the zone district. General development regulations are just that, they're general, so things like parking requirements, landscape requirements. We generally like to have those in one place, and we also want to see very clear applicability requirements. So when does a landscaping requirement apply to a project? So part of the review will be making sure that that applicability is very clear. Again, we want to provide for predictability for those who are wanting to develop in Porterville so they know exactly the steps that they need to get into and the standards that are going to apply to their projects. Next slide, please. We also have specific use regulations, and these are regulations that apply to specific uses. It's very aptly named. And specific use regulations are usually in codes for 2 reasons. One is there are quite a few uses that are regulated by the state, and so you have to have some regulations in order to direct those uses. And examples of those types of uses are accessory dwelling units. There's also telecommunication facilities. Those are 2 examples. The other reason that you have specific use regulations in your code is because they're important for you as a community to be able to regulate them in certain ways. And you have a few of those in your code now. Some of the examples are auto-related uses. Those are regulated specifically in your code, as well as things like storage facilities. So what we will be doing is reviewing all of the specific use regulations, making sure the state-regulated uses are consistent with state law, and then also reviewing those local specific regulations and making sure that they are still reflective of what Porterville wants to see in its development. Next slide. So I ran through those pretty quickly, I understand, but I'm happy to take questions, but I do want to cover some of the next steps. As Jason mentioned, we're currently drafting the development code. We're reviewing all of the documentation and making recommended changes. That is going to be delivered to city staff in the near term, probably in the next month or so is what we're targeting. That will include the development code itself, as well as the draft zoning map with recommended changes to both of those documents. Following city staff review, those will be released for a public review, generally a 30-day public review. And that's when we will be back before council and we will actually propose or present the recommended changes during a workshop with city council. That will take place during the 30-day public review to provide you opportunities to ask questions. It also provides the public the opportunity to come ask questions about the proposed regulations. So ultimately, we are targeting an adoption in early summer. So it will be a pretty quick timeline, and you should see me back here probably in the next couple of months is what we're estimating. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
First of all, I want to thank you for all the information and the summary and putting us on to look to the items. And I want to appreciate the audit report that we did receive. Helped me kind of connect the dots to what you were saying and speaking. How does council, any comment, any questions? I think the fact that to draft the code, and of course, we will be a participant during a workshop. That's good. So that way we can ask for questions to that. So please, go ahead.
Thank you for the summary. I think there was a lot of things that stood out that are very helpful for, review and just understanding it, but addressing those basic things, the inconsistencies or redundancy, that it aligns with the general plan, and then reflecting the state policies and regulations. So those basics, but then also I liked the discussion about the permit processing and making it user-friendly. I think that's really important to us, streamlining that process so that it's, effective and easy to utilize and incorporate, but also appreciate that the stakeholders were involved in the feedback as well. So looking forward to more discussion and information for us. Thank you very much.
I like your comment with affordable housing. It's what's affordable to the person that can buy the home. Thank you for that. Because that, when affordable, it gets taken many different directions.
It's always good to clarify that term. Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, at this point, this is just for direction. So believe we want you to move forward with this and bring it back to us.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, we just wanted to provide an update and get any direction as Provost Pritchard as well as staff is moving through this development ordinance update as we make sure that we are going in the direction that is your vision. So as Sarah stated, we'll continue to work on this and bring back for another presentation in the future as we're closer on releasing and have for adoption.
Okay, do you have far to drive? Be safe going home if you have far to drive.
Thank you very much. We will.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now we will go on to the two items that were added, number 1 and number 2, which would be 18 and 19 of the scheduled matters, the emergency items.
Having to pivot to new meetings, out of one meeting into two other meetings.
Right.
This is how we had to do it as part of, so Apologize for that. So, thank you, Your Honor. Number, I guess what would be 17? 18, pardon me. 18, I appreciate the council's consideration adding this as authorization. So as city staff continues to flood fight on the Tule River and mitigation of channel debris, it's become expected that, as well as what's expected to be a long-term recovery and restoration of the river, staff's determined the essential need for an excavator with a 48-inch claw bucket. While staff was inquiring with local equipment distributors, a single, and I think you're going to start hearing a lot about this, you've already heard about this with patrol cars and fire equipment and lead times and things like that, but a single Caterpillar excavator was located at Quinn Company in Bakersfield, available for purchase for $295,396.86, and a Rockland Crido Claw 48-inch bucket for $57,406, though the claw bucket would need to be ordered with an approximate 6 to 7 week delivery period. Given to press this essential equipment into service as soon as possible, the rental of a claw bucket would be necessary at a cost of $4,337.59. Quinn Company excavator and claw bucket available for purchase is contained on what's called the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program, which fund, and those are based upon previous biddings. So these have been publicly bid, and so is on a cooperative bidding list, which funds are available. And I believe I said out of equipment replacement reserve fund. Mr. Knight's going to recommend out of the water. These will serve primarily water purposes support. Though staff will pursue fund recovery under both federal and state emergency response reimbursements. So staff's recommendation is that the City Council authorize the purchase of the Caterpillar Inc. excavator and Rockland Crido Claw 48-inch bucket and authorize payment for said equipment upon satisfactory delivery. Happy to answer any questions.
Council, if you have no questions, do you have a recommendation? What is your recommendation?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the purchase of the Caterpillar excavator and the bucket, and then authorize payment for said equipment upon the satisfactory delivery.
We have a motion by the Vice Mayor. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
A second by Councilmember Meister. No further discussion. Call for the vote. Passes unanimous, 5-0. We'll now go into the next one.
Thank you, Your Honor. Item number 19 would be a similar authorization to purchase equipment. Thank you for the council's support in adding this as an item. Similarly, in the continued emergency flood fight on the Tule River and protection of the Porter Slough as well, and then mitigation of channel debris, identified the need for a small bulldozer. Right now, we've been using one that is contained at the OHV Park. That's been relocated out to assist in those operations currently. While inquiring with local equipment distributors, a single D2 track type tractor was located again with Quinn Company in Bakersfield, available for purchase for $193,644.74. Quinn Company bulldozer is again available for purchase on the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program, and funds are available in the Water Equipment Replacement Reserve Fund, to which fund recovery will be sought under federal and state emergency response reimbursement. Recommendation the council authorize the purchase of Caterpillar D2 track type tractor and authorize payment for said equipment under satisfactory delivery.
Thank you very much. Council, how do you wish to proceed?
Question?
Please. Or Mr.
For
Wall?
this item, and maybe the one that's already been approved, I didn't see any quote for a trailer. Do we have existing trailers to haul these around?
We do. We have lowboy trailers that can transport.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Then with that, do we have what is your recommendation, council? Do we have a motion, a recommendation?
I make a motion, we accept the recommendations.
We have a motion by Councilmember Beltran,
I'll second.
a second by the Vice Mayor. No further discussion. Call for the vote. Passes unanimous, 5-0. Thank you. All right. We will now move on to the AB 1234 reports. This is the time for all AB 1234 reports required pursuant to Government Code 53232.3. The first one is the ribbon cutting ceremony for the EECU Credit Union. Mr. Lawless and I were in attendance. It was their grand opening, and I do know Mr. Cadillo was also there. I do know that. We spoke. But anyway, I want to say it was what was really warm felt about this is because we were in a historical building that was once history, and how Corner Store has been renovated to where it's at right now, and it was a beautiful credit union. When you walked in, it was very warm felt. They had representatives that flew in from out of town for the credit union. As far as Chicago was one of the ladies that came in who caught a flight to Sacramento to support the credit union. All their board of directors were there and got to speak to how each department was involved in their planning and what they did. And they complimented the city of Porterville, working with staff and going through the permitting process and through everything else. But it was good to attend. It went by so fast, March the 8th, and then all of a sudden, here we go. Cal Van's board meeting was canceled. The next one is the Wall of Fame ceremony, and I'm going to go with Councilmember Beltran first.
I attended the Wall of Fame ceremonies in the past. My mother was inducted some years back, and it was great to have the honor to recommend somebody and have that recognized, as well as the rest of the nominees. But just so tremendous to hear everybody's stories, that we may know their faces or hear their names, but to see their family members and the impact that those individuals had in our community, it was just, I think that's just what makes Porterville, in trying times like we are right now with the flood and other situations, just what makes it's our backbone of our community, and just these pillars to be recognized. It was such an honor just to be part of that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wyrock.
Well, this was my first time at the Wall of Fame ceremony, and to be able to nominate Milt Stowe, who's done so much for the community, and to see the other people that were nominated and the families of people nominated was just very edifying to everybody in this community, and to me, it meant a lot to me and to those that were nominated and selected. I look forward to next year being able to participate again. There's a lot of great people doing great things for our community. It's hard to only recommend 5. Maybe we need to take the council up to 13 between now and next year. But it was a great list of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Meister.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was neat to go and look at the wall and to listen to some of the people that were nominated and talking, I worked with him on this project, and I worked with this person on this project. It really shows, and I said this that day, that we Portervillians, all politics aside, when it comes to our community, we come together to make it a better place. And so it was a great honor to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge all 5 of the honorees that we got to hear about, and see their families and friends. I was happy to be inside the chambers with everybody and see a real full room. And then I want to also acknowledge the staff for being so quick to be flexible and get us set up in here and make it really nice for the honorees. So I know that last year we were able to be out in the park after 3 years or so of, being restricted on that. But so we were looking forward to being back out there, but the staff moved quickly on that really rough day of weather. So I just want to also thank you for making it nice for those 5 honorees.
I want to congratulate all the honorees, and I'm thankful. But one of the things that I reflected on since this started back in 2007, that I have had the privilege and the honor to stand with a lot of the honorees going back that many years, whether they've been through community service projects, working on committees. And it is amazing that for every year there has been a recognition how involved in the community they all have been. And I was glad that we went to Plan B and we weren't going out, we were not standing outside and we were in here, but the alert systems were going off, but we were good. We were inside. But I want to say thank you to everyone for making it happen and how it was warm felt and it brought a good smile to a lot of faces. It was good. Okay, the Tulare County Water Commission. That was one of the shortest meetings I have ever attended in my tenure on the Water Commission. And the minutes were carried over because there was a problem with not getting them time-stamped. The presentation was carried over. The rest of the meeting was informational. What was noted on legislation were 2 assembly bills in opposition, and one of them was Assembly Bill 1563. The other one was Senate Bill 550. All the other ones that were presented were to watch. The staff reports that we received, there were no significant changes. The remainder was gathering of information, the Form 700s, the ethics training, and that was it. The meeting was the shortest one I had ever attended. Our next meeting is scheduled for April the 10th. The next one is the Tulare County Regional Transit Authority study session of March the 14th. Councilmember Wyrock?
Yes, I did not attend that meeting, so I have nothing to report.
Okay. The meeting of the Tulare County Task Force on Homelessness of March 15th was canceled. The City Selection Committee meeting of March 15th was canceled. The Council of Cities Committee meeting of March 15th was canceled. The police officer swearing-in ceremony of March 16th was canceled. The TCAG board retreat of March 16th was canceled. The City Tribe MOU meeting of March 16th was canceled. The PATA board meeting of March 17th was canceled. That was all due to the flood emergency and the safety of everybody involved in the surrounding communities. TCAG, I will carry that one over. We met yesterday, so I will carry that one over to the next meeting. There is another one for the Tulare County Regional Transit Authority of March 20th. Is that?
It's tomorrow?
It's tomorrow, okay.
And just a quick report out, we did have scheduled a financial sustainability committee for earlier in the month, and that was canceled. And we hope to have some information tomorrow night about that governance part of the TCRTA, as well as finding a new director, as we had Rich Tree resign from his position.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll now go into oral communications. Anyone, please?
Of course.
You have 3 minutes.
Yes. So I thanked the council the last time. This time I want to thank the staff. I have seen staff out working very hard. I've been out at the river, I've been out at the gardens, I've been out in public, and I really appreciate the obvious dedication that staff has had to serving the city as a whole. Second thing, I would like us to consider using the events of this spring as a learning opportunity about what potential zoning or area around the river or other floodplain areas that we need to think about restricting or development on, or specifying certain things when we develop areas. The area of River Springs Road, my son lives there with his family, and had the city, or I don't know who it is, but worked very hard to create that berm along River Springs Road, there would have been significantly more damage. And I feel glad that whoever it was created that berm, and very sad that similar potential flooding areas both east and west of the center of Porterville were flooded. So please consider zoning for flood purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come forward in oral communications? Do we have anyone on virtually?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. We'll now move into other matters. Councilmember Beltran?
Going back to the beginning of the meeting, I love the library reports. I love hearing how active that is in our community, given what they have to work with. And also, thank you, the staff report for the Crayola preschool change in that zoning. And just, I appreciate as we get our agenda packets, what we're going to be working on. It's that information that staff provides us makes our job so simple. There's always tough issues that we have to deal with, but just the backbone, just as the Mrs. Capone was addressing the staff in all kinds of areas in our community, just do an outstanding job. So I'm so thankful. As much as we get credit for helping and doing stuff, it's really the city staff that keeps the city functioning. I wanted to quickly address some of the homeless issue that obviously is a little bit more in our face right now because of the Tule River flooding situation, and those people coming out of those areas are more visible, and unfortunately, a lot of Public Works Department were having to clear debris and stuff from these encampments that were getting trapped and causing water flow issues. It's a big concern we'll continue addressing later on. Unfortunately, it's one of these boundary issues, what city has control over and other departments that is the Tule River that the city doesn't have a whole lot of jurisdiction over. But being on the homeless committee, I understand the issue with compassion and giving shelter, showers, toilets, stuff of that are just basic human needs. Having been on that committee, it's also very frustrating that many of those that are still down there are suffering from either substance or mental health issues that we cannot force them. There's places for them to go to get all those services, but it's just been a challenge. So, but again, being on the committee, I do see our staff really working hard to try and address some of those concerns just for their own benefit, even if they're not aware of it themselves, and being of the right mind to take care of themselves. There's a tremendous effort out there on nonprofit and different agencies that work with. I was speaking with an individual today who works for Family Crisis, and he has 2 individuals that were in the shelter as part of the evacuees, and because of some of their habits and lifestyle, they weren't allowed to stay there and chose to go back to the river, and which is causing law enforcement and those working down there a little bit of trouble. So, but staff, and law enforcement are being very sensitive to their situations, but at the same time, public safety, environmental safety, even their own safety, there's a fine line there, and we're working on it, and hopefully we'll get some answers from the state and some more help with funding and also some of the stuff we addressed today with housing and what have you. So yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I'm sure we'll I love seeing all the community events that we just passed with the downtown Spring Festival and these schools and different organizations. I love seeing our community come back in the springtime. All these community events for us, we need that. And just the praise once again for Public Works, fire, police that are down there. I understand, this is something our community hasn't dealt with in a really long time. And everybody was, I wouldn't say scared, but had grave concerns and getting alerts and seeing stuff on social media and in the news. But it was great to see the community come together in different aspects, either outside of city limits and within the city, to help each other out. But just those first responders, Public Works, and city staff working with the county and sheriff, state agencies, we got a glimpse in our closed session of what the tremendous effort that goes on that unfortunately we don't all get to see and hear all the details of. But it just makes me, once again, just like the Wall of Fame ceremony, makes me very proud to sit here and represent members of the community, but also just to live and be a member of this community. I'm very proud of that effort. So thank you, city staff, for all that work.
Thank Thank you. Councilmember Wyrock?
Thank you. I was trying to think of one word. Could there be one word to describe all of the efforts, city staff, and the many professionals in our departments, fire, police? One word that could describe them, and the only word that I could really think of is relentless. The emergency responders, very capable city staff, just partnering to get things done out there. We have, maybe some of us have an idea of what it's like to work days on end without really a break. But they walk around trying even harder to accomplish the tasks that they've set their mind to accomplish. I'd like to recognize, Michael Knight as well for even giving a shout out to the ETGSA, whose manager's here today, about the partnership between the board, the farmers, the ranchers to help get all of this done out there, and there's more to do. He really appreciates the support, and he let us know about that. And then Mr. Mathis being here tonight, offering his support and his encouragement to us, it's appreciated, and I'm sure you'll hear from others up here tonight. We've never met, we've never spoke, but we appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate you being here and helping Porterville get through this in the county and the state as well. It's a heavy burden, and I'm glad there's elected officials that take it upon themselves to help make it happen as efficiently and as affordably as possible. I was contacted by somebody that has a business on Main Street, and they mentioned that we write a lot of grants, and they were just wondering if somebody could sniff around and maybe find some grant funding for some of these businesses that might be struggling a little bit and they can't rebuild the front of their building to dress it up. I saw a picture in the presentation tonight from PMP, and there was an image of a street light pole and a flag about Porterville at 100 years, and it just looked clean and crisp. And when you go up and down Main Street, you see areas like that, but then you see areas not like that, kind of like going to different parts of our community. So he was hoping that we could find some money, some grants to maybe help the less fortunate businesses keep up the facade. The next, I was really surprised. We heard about this more than maybe 2 meetings ago about how quickly we sold out on the pool for the summer. And I know it costs a lot of money to dig a hole in the ground and build some pools. But as we go through this planning, the code update, and looking at the general plan, maybe there's some more relief for people on those hot summer days with possibly more pools.
Yeah.
And Parks and Leisure certainly has been doing a good job for the city. It'd be nice to be able to support them with some type of swimming project. And lastly, just one last thing, Mr. Lawless, you and I spoke about our schools earlier today, I think it was, and how they have emergency plans and strategy sessions to anticipate should something happen, there's a response in order. And I know we got started on some of that a couple of months ago, and I just don't want us to lose access to that or to not follow through and make sure all of our schools and our teachers and the people working there are well prepared for an event should one occur. So thank you, Mr. Lawless, for all your tireless support too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Meister.
Well, in any crisis, there are lessons learned. We definitely were hit hard by this rain event with the historic snowpack. We've seen the capacity of the lake be met, and water flow that hasn't been seen in a long time. Some say since '69 is a good example where the city of Porterville was flooded. And there were some decisions that were made that were just vital to the protection of the city, protection of life and property. It starts with Mitch Brown and a berm. I haven't got to see the berm. I just add, I got to the privilege of riding with Michael Might, Assemblyman Mathis, John Lawless, and Jason Ridenhour. We got a tour of the work that Public Works has been doing in collaboration with the fire department, police department, and I'm sure Parks and Leisures as well. Just amazing job. But seeing the decisions that were made in what I call initial attack. That's the first 48 hours is initial attack, and then we go into flood attack, right, which is a continued on. But the decisions from Mitch Brown making a berm, diverting the river back to the canal, and then damming off Porter Slough was huge. If you look back to 1968, when the flood hit, it overflowed the Porter Slough, and it was a major impact. And if you look at that, if you can imagine trying to evacuate all the homes in between along Porter Slough and Sierra View, I just can't imagine the devastation. So getting to go on that tour yesterday, I seen where the decision to block off Porter Slough, and then just the brains behind it. Michael Knight decides, if Mitch Brown's diversion gives out, or berm, he looked at the historical flow from back then, and he goes upriver or downriver from Porter Slough and puts another dam in, or blocks it off again to preserve the safety of our community, which is just amazing thinking out ahead, right? To the berms being built at River Springs, you talked about that. It was just crucial. It was on the spot, initial attack, command decisions that really saved life and property. I watched the Rio Vista houses, the 8 homes that were evacuated. As I watched from Plano Bridge, I just didn't think we were going to save those homes. And when I got the notice that those homes were being evacuated, I prayed for them, and it broke my heart because I just couldn't imagine losing my own home. And the dedication, just the commitment of the city employees from the top to the bottom to save life and property is just unbelievable. And knock on wood, Porterville hasn't lost a home in this event. It's just amazing. It just goes to show the workman's skill, the guts that are within this organization, this government, this local government. Very proud. I want to just, if we could get this on record in minutes. Jason, how many hours did you work straight? Put you on the spot.
Not as much as the fire chief.
Well, I was going to do him last.
No.
Patrice, how many hours did you work straight? Yeah. Michael Knight, how many hours did you work straight?
Countless.
I don't want it to be a competition with the fire chief.
It sounds like we're not disclosing here, huh?
Not disclosing.
Yeah, another thing, city manager was on vacation with his family, and here's this flood that's hitting our city, and he sacrificed that to get back. And of course, I get it, it's his job, right? But the decision-making to do that and putting the city first before his family is a big deal, and it needs to be acknowledged, so thank you, John, for that.
He's still married.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so just extremely thankful. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said.
Vice Mayor.
I have a few. First, I want to thank the chamber for coming in, and it's great to hear those updates because it's a lot of work that they've been doing with the local businesses, and we're starting to see a lot of momentum there. So from the time that I started and coming out of COVID, that's great to see and hear. Also want to thank Kathy Capone for coming in and giving us an update on the gardens. And I think that, a lot of people were concerned about that as well. But also update on those signs that were installed. They're really nice. I've just seen photos, but also, again, thank you for the reminder for us to visit. I will take you up on that soon. I wanted to thank Assemblymember Mathis for being here tonight and for your comments around all the work that's being done with your firsthand, you being out there and actually seeing it. thank you for that and acknowledging the neighbors and partners and all the work that's being done, and not to forget our local area as well. I think one of the things I wanted to talk about from our agenda tonight was the equipment. And for me, you know, working the different work that I do and then being here as a council member, just the ability to acknowledge that we need that equipment and how hard it is to obtain things like that in these unique times. Thank you to staff for determining that that is a current need and moving quickly on it to access that for our city and to protect. It's really to protect our community. So thank you for that. Also, it's going to be for maintenance and ongoing work for months to come. Really want to thank the staff for doing that. One of the last things I want to say with this weather and the devastation around the whole Central Valley, and in city and then the mountain communities that surround us, is one of the important things I think that we could do just as public and residents is just sharing resources. And there's a lot of really good resources that are on the official pages through the county, through Cal OES, the Sheriff's Office Department has been sharing items, the City Fire, City Police Department, and the Tribe. And I think there's been a lot of really good information that has been able to be disseminated, but also shared in English and Spanish on the floods. There's a flood hotline, information on the evacuations, road closures, which has been very important to keep more people out of harm's way if possible, information on the schools and school districts. So I just wanted to kind of, just mention that that is one thing that we can all do is kind of share that, whether it's printing out those flyers and sharing them or sharing on social media, and really emphasizing using those official pages to do that. And then one thing that I think has come out of this, and my experience on both here on the city side and the tribe side, is working with the EOCs and how important that is, and how interesting it is that it kind of changes the current structure of a government. And so whoever becomes the lead on the EOC, and there's all these different titles. I think, something that I was thinking about is because that shifts and it shifts so quickly and we're so dependent on it, some training for us even on the structure, the organizational structure of how that changes, so that we're able to lead, I guess, in a better informed way, so that we understand how those multi-levels work together with different governments and agencies. Just wanted to ask that in a respectful way if we can consider that. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
I want to thank council members and the vice mayor for their comments. They're important. I want to thank the assemblyman for the phone call and the boots on the ground. Rogelio, you must be a very popular person right now.
That's forward.
And I also want to thank you for your efforts, because you're doing quite a bit as well. We have all witnessed the beauty of Mother Nature in and around our surrounding communities, but we have also witnessed the destruction, the danger, and the disaster. I want to thank those of you who participated on the community forums, and I encourage everyone that can to attend for the gathering of information. When I listened, I was very proud of Porterville, and I walked away saying Porterville is in good hands with the emergency services, their staff, and their personnel. And we've heard with the collaboration amongst the agencies 24/7. My continued prayers to all who are involved for their protection as they strive to take care of all who are in the city and in the surrounding communities, but that when they leave their house, their home, that they return safely to their families. They are doing some incredible work. I've watched, I've seen, and I stand back because they're putting themselves at risk because they want to protect us. I also want to add, we always say a big gratitude to the police department, the fire department, and Public Works. They have been nonstop, 24/7, and they do it because they want to do it and protect us all. But work that doesn't go unnoticed, I want to include Parks and Recreation, their involvement. They haven't slept. They've been involved. I know that Donnie Moore and Amy, they're on task wherever they are needed. They will step up to the plate. There is another department that is incredible, and that is the IT department, who have produced the maps of the district and working with the emergency operations group and changing from 1 minute to the next in conversations where districts go and who's doing what. I want to say kudos to them too, because they've been very instrumental, as well as the Community Development Department. Maria, I know you're listening. I know that you're listening. I also want to thank the Department of Finance to this regard, because you are a stronghold to all of us, to all the departments, and know that your work doesn't go unnoticed, and I know that you have had help to this regard as well. I'm extremely proud of the messaging in the different languages, whether it be sign language, Spanish, other languages that are needed, that is available when they go to the person. And if they're needed, they will have them right then and there. I want to also acknowledge another person, and that's Yuriko. She has been a strong conduit in the messaging, and also another one that got to put on television on a moment's flash for Telemundo, is it? Telemundo, and did an interview in Spanish to this regard. She is an excellent PIO person, and her ability to speak both English and Spanish has been very instrumental to Porterville. I witnessed the Cal OES trailer go by the other day with the Swiftwater team, and they are doing their job. They go down to the river, they assess, and they go on, they move around, but they're out there 24/7. I witnessed the crews as they were working. Mr. Knight, I know you've been driving some of that equipment. He's just listening too. But I don't know what more to say. That Mr. Lawless, I know that you're very proud of all your staff, and that it is an honor for me to stand with your staff and for everyone here that represents the city of Porterville. Thank you. That concludes.
Well, you took some of mine.
That's okay.
Yeah. So, want to begin, first of all, so Oscar was here this evening, and I thought I'd like to share that Galaxy Theaters recognized him as a hometown hero. They came and recognized him for all the work that he did on, with the, oh, help me, Jason.
So Oscar is instrumental, always answering questions when anybody calls. They had some questions about the proposed temporary use permit, and he worked them through, and they were very happy with how he provided information, was a conduit to them, and they realized what he does for the community. So,
So they came down, big bag of popcorn, and in true Oscar fashions, put it in the break room, said, "Go get it." So so I really appreciate. Thought I'd share that with him. He left. I was like, "Wait a minute, sit down." But he went. But I want to give rightful kudos to that. Just great comments on the flood fight. as we are supposed to call it, apparently. So, you know, it was a unique opportunity to watch, you know, training put into place, and those that haven't had the training, watching the modeling that's going, and then just following in sync. And I was late to the party. I made it just when the flooding started, so that was exciting. I made it. That was a very long 13 hours trying to get back in time. But I raise that because comments that, and those that are out there, so there are employees that are in City Hall and other city facilities, just making sure operations continue. And several of them mentioned to me that they said, hey, we just want to let you know, we really appreciate all of the staff that's out there doing these things. We know that it's dangerous in some capacities, and that they were praying for them. And that was unsolicited, just in the hallways or in the break room kinds of things. So I thought I'd pass that along to all of the employees, that even if you're not out there, that it was a neat, I was glad to hear that from other employees, concerned about other employees that were out doing those things, and they wish they could be out there, but they understood that was not their skill set. So you spoke about Eureka, and she's really stepped up and did a Telemundo interview, although she gave me, and I only say this because it was such a unique experience, and this has been a unique experience. So I did a national live on Fox Weather today. I've done lots of interviews. I've never done a live nationwide broadcast. So all the stuff, and they had technical difficulties. In fact, there was a concern there. I was going to be on Fox News, but my voice was going to be on Fox Weather. So, but they got it all straightened out about a minute before I went on, and we're good, and it went very well. So it's, modern technology, even at the highest level, has challenges, and they got it all figured out, and you'd never have known. So I really appreciate great professionals as well, and the IT people just jumping in. And then this morning, certainly there was a police incident, and that took a lot of interagency. So what I've been really impressed with is in EOC training, they call them inserts, and they just keep, it's like juggling 3 balls, and they're like, hey, great, here's 4, here's 5, and they just keep throwing them at you, and you can't let any of them fall. And I really give appreciation to Chief Costello and his and our officers that are sitting here in back. There's a lot of activity, and I express my appreciation to my colleagues in Tulare and Visalia for, even when they were facing their own challenges, supporting a very important activity that was going on this morning, and didn't go to plan, because there are going to be variables that come up that, even best laid plans, you have to be flexible, and you have to be able, and so and in the end, it was a successful mission. So really great kudos to the PD, and just great coordination. And again, I extended my appreciation to my colleagues who allowed their resources to come and support in a very difficult time on that as well. And then lastly, on March 30th, our mayor is going to be opportunity. This is Women's History Month, and so she and former Mayor Gorola and others are going to be, some of our Wall of Fame honorees are going to be able to speak to a number of members of our community and speak about their journeys. So I know she won't promote herself, so someone else will have to do it, and so I'll do that. So just want to say thank you to the council, and I can't say enough to the staff that you've said it more than adequately than I could. So just want to say thank you.
Thank you. It is 8:40. This meeting is adjourned.